we're back, baby. Woo!
Woo!
Whatever. All right, we're back. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. People stuck around. Hey. All right. So we're going to get into the regular show here. Hopefully y'all can hear us well enough. My audio still sucks on here, but I'm not worried about it right now. Bring that up there. Turn that off for now so I don't have to deal with that. Hello, test. All right, cool. All right.
Hello.
Okay. Don't start singing. Nobody wants to hear that. All right. So let's get into the main deal here.
Let's get it started.
But honestly, the chat room will be able to hear the bumpers actually, won't they?
Probably. It's just we won't.
No, we will. It just won't be recording it.
Oh, that's a good point.
Let's just live on the edge here.
Living on the edge.
Can't have you never. Okay. We don't want to drive away the people there and there. Okay, so we're going to get started real quick. Let me get my bumpers in order. I'm actually going to bring these up because I like these. I touch these ones up a little bit. All right. Ready, bro?
Ready.
Oh, God. Maybe I shouldn't have used that.
Blast came from the Death Star. That thing's operational.
Dr. Banner, now might be a really good time for you to get angry.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 150 of the Usual Podcast. Podcast we discuss Star Wars: The Old Republic, the Star Wars franchise, and geek and pop culture. I'm your host, Marshall, and with me is my co-host. Well, what's up, man? 150.
150. I guess that would make this a sequicentennial.
A what now?
Sequicentennial is the 150-year anniversary.
Okay.
So sequicenten.
I'm just going to go ahead and say you're making that up.
Okay.
But I support you.
Thanks, Lady Danny.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, lady. All right. And we're just sitting here enjoying our usual frosty beverages on 150. What are you drinking, bro?
Well, we were kind of clearing out the back of the beer storage tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm drinking. I actually had to throw out my first choice. We're drinking Lagunitas 12th of Never Ale.
It's a nice light ale.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's good. Lagunitas is one of my favorite breweries, obviously. I am drinking Drake's War Pigeon double IPA, and I love Drake's Brewing Company, and I know I told this story before, but when I go to the Bay Area, either visit my brother-in-law or my buddy Tim, I try to go to Drake's dealership where I got the Duck Hunt shirt at, and excellent pizza, awesome beers, and all geeky and awesome. I love it.
So before we get too far into all this stuff, I'm just going to drop a little knowledge on y'all.
Oh, God, I was just about to... Okay, go ahead.
We've got some amazing news for our fans in the Midwest.
Oh, you're going to do that now?
I'm going to do it now.
But usually I say before we get started. And then I feel like we're getting started. But
good point. No. Let's do.
So before we get started, if you have comments or questions, you can find us at theusualpodcast.com. Email us at theusualpodcast@gmail.com. And we're on Facebook, Google+, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. I am at Darth Pops on Twitter, and Will is at I am Will Griggs. We're on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and Plex. So give us a time, share us with your friends, give us positive ratings, and go to the iTunes if people still do that, and give stars and such. That'd be fun.
Stars are good.
Stars are good. Don't forget teespring.com/stores/usual podcast. If you want to support the show, we got tons of stuff on there. It's still not too late to contribute to Extra Life as well. And we have the timestamps in the show notes if you're not a SWTOR fan. And if you're not watching live, thanks to everybody who is watching live. And so before we get to SWTOR and everybody else, thank you to the chat room. And we always keep an eye on that the best we can. And, dude, you had something you want to say?
Yeah. So if you've listened to last few shows, you've known that my ungrateful. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
Wow. No, my school district has decided to cut funding, and they decided to cut my position at my school. So I've been laid off,
Indeed.
and my last day of work is coming up in a few weeks. Well, I just went down to Central Coast of California for my sister's wedding, which was gorgeous. So much fun. It was
Congrats.
on the
Congrats,
beach.
Donna.
Excuse me. And I talked with some family and everything, and I had planned on going up to Seattle for a couple of weeks during the holidays, and then I didn't really have any plans after that. I've applied to a couple of grad schools in New York City, but I won't hear back from them for a few months, so that's something in the hopper. But I've decided I'm going to move to the Lou. I'm going to go throw some bows with Nelly.
You're going to live in a toilet?
No, I'm St. Louis.
Got
St.
him.
Louis, you fool. I'm going to go live underneath the arch.
Nice, dude.
The beginning of the Lewis and Clark journey, the old lady, the old Mississippi.
Okay, that's a lot of history, but we're going to miss you in the brag, dude.
You're the only person besides me that actually has referred to it as the brag.
No, the brag. It's legit. It's a thing.
But the reason why I actually started talking about it during what we're drinking is like, I should get Anheuser-Busch to start sponsoring us.
You should get somebody out there. So, dude, yeah, I wish you the best of luck. Of course, we will continue the show. Of course, depending on Will's travel plans and stuff, I'll probably get Skeen to sub in here and there. But like I said, this show we've been doing for 150 episodes. We've been doing this show. It'll
really
be
closer to 200.
Yeah, it'll be 4 years in
January,
and I love doing this show. I love doing this show with you. So real quick, I thought as a real quick curveball, since this is a nice round episode, should we say why we call this show The Usual? Just one more time,
absolutely,
real quick.
absolutely. And actually, it's a good way to ask for more patrons because if we get some more patrons, we'll finally fulfill the goal of the original patron goal list, which was to do a live reading of.
Oh, right, a live reading of the screenplay we wrote that God knows where that is at this point.
I know,
but
right? We're gonna have to find it.
We'll have to go archives in my old laptop or something. But all right, so before we get into SWTOR, I do want to give a quick shout out. Speaking of Patreon,
Oh, did we want to tell?
yeah,
the-
we're gonna do
okay.
it in a second. But quick shout out to Drinking Buddies. I don't want to forget them. Zen, Eddie, and of course Mr. John Skeen, who is subbed on the show enough times to. We're gonna try to get him. He's coming to San Diego next year, but I'm gonna try to get him in on our press deal if we can get into press.
Well, that's another thing is that by going to St. Louis, I might be able to go to Archon or Chicago or Indianapolis Comic Con or.
And there's a writing convention I'm trying to go to in May out there, so that'll be
Nice.
pretty cool. So all that said, one of my how do I want to say this? As a listener of many podcasts, one thing that I always like the consistency of how shows start, but at the same time, it's basically to orient people who may be their first episode. And if
Exactly.
this is your first episode at The Usual, thank you for listening. But at the same time, you're like, why is this called The Usual? They're going to talk about SWTOR, Star Wars, and pop culture. I promise we won't talk more than a couple minutes about this, but it's a quick story. But there's a reason we call this The Usual. Would you like to start?
I want to take you back to the summer of 1999.
Was it 99?
99.
Yeah, 1999.
Summer of 1999. A wet behind the ears former music store manager, returns to school and meets a
Awesome bald black dude.
skinny, bald, clean-shaven black dude.
Pretty much the opposite of what I am now.
Exactly. Who had a knack for quoting Beatles and Bone Thugs
Bone Thugs.
and wore everything Nike.
Yep, indeed. And so we got to be friends, obviously. And over time, what was it? Was it that summer of 99? No, it was like 2001-ish.
2001, I was working at the Flats.
Yeah. So 2001-ish, I went through a bad breakup. And there was the next morning, basically, I showed up at Will's door and knocked on his door until he finally got his butt out of bed.
It was like 10 o'clock,
Yeah,
dude.
it was like 10 a.m. But I said, it's time. I basically said something along the lines of, I need a drink or we got to
Well,
go.
before he even knocked on my door, he went to my fridge and pulled out a couple of beers.
I did. And it was 10 o'clock. So it was that kind of day. So long and the short of it is, we lived in San Luis Obispo. It's a college town. And we worked restaurants. I was a bartender at the time. And what we did was we went to all of our favorite spots after we got off work. And so every spot we went, we had our own usual.
Right.
So
So,
basically that day, I was having such a crappy day. We went to every single spot
Yeah,
and had our usual.
we did. And the thing is instead of starting at midnight,
Yeah.
we were starting at 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
What I love is in the middle of this day, we decided to take a break and we went to go see Dude, Where's My Car
Oh, that was great. Yeah, dude, where's my car? I forgot about that.
at the Fremont.
And I was wearing flip-flops, and at some point,
You lost one.
my flip-flops were gone.
and you had a cut.
I had a cut on my foot. It was a great time.
But
Anyway.
one of the best things about it is because we were starting early, we basically hit everybody's happy hours.
Yes.
And we knew all the bartenders, and so we went to a restaurant where we got. Well, this is back when you actually ate meat.
Yeah.
So we got some tri-tip at Firestone. We picked up our friend
Jackie.
Jackie. Why was I drawing a blank on Jackie's name? And then so what was happening is at the end of the happy hours, we go on to the next bar, but we'd take one of the bartenders with us.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the night, we had this huge group of bar employees
Yeah, it was great.
circling the bars with us.
And it was a ton of fun. And so really what it comes down to is when I decided I really wanted to start a podcast. I was listening to a lot, and he and I were always sitting around talking about geeky shit. And I'm just going to say it's 150. We were sitting around talking about geeky shit, and I was like, you know what? I want to do a podcast, dude. What if we talk about SWTOR because we've been playing the game and Star Wars and just whatever we want? And he's like, all right, so what do we call it? And, of course, we came up with the usual. So
Right, because we always had our usuals.
Yeah, and it gives us some flexibility in the title of our show to talk about kind of whatever the hell we want anyway, which is kind of cool. So I love doing this show. So anybody new listening, welcome. Any old listeners, if you didn't know that story, now you know.
Yeah, so one of the things is I believe it's if we get 20 patron subscribers, right? Is it 20 or 50?
I don't have to look.
I'll have to look at it. But if you go to our patreon.com/usual podcast, you'll see that we will dig out our screenplay that we wrote called Happy Hours.
Yep.
And we will do a table rate of patrons reading the script.
Yeah. I don't think the script's done. I think it's only like 2 pages.
We'll have to do a little work on it. But the main characters are John and Leroy.
Yeah. That's our middle names. Anyway, let's move on with our lives.
All right.
So Star Wars: The Old Republic, dude.
I thought you were going to play the bumper.
I'm trying. It's not playing.
You want to fight? I'm ready.
You do not have to stand against me. Instead, I will share all of this with you, if you will only kneel.
All right, we got to get Darren DePaul back on the show at some point.
Dude, that guy's amazing. All right, man. So we got a ton of stuff to talk about. So, but community shout-outs. Look, I'm not gonna bury the lead here.
Nope.
Brian's talking some smack.
Dude,
So the
Brian
bad feeling
was
feud
talking
is
some
back,
smack.
bro. Back. But why am I saying this? I'm saying this because did we talk about SWTOR Unite last time we recorded?
Yes, because you were
We
saying
did.
you were going to be doing it.
Yeah. So we talked about it. It happened. It was amazing. It was super fun. We tried to take down Gods from the Machine, bunch of podcasters from all the different podcasts, and we have links in the show notes in the last show. But I was supposed to. I put my list, my preference in there, and I preferenced Tank, and Brian apparently was supposed to, and I took his place. Turns out I got it, and I think he's just jealous, honestly.
Well, who isn't jealous of you?
Indeed. But we got to the last boss. It actually went really, really well. And actually, in the latest episode of Bad Feeling, I'll give them a shout out because I love those guys, even though I hate you. We did well. We did really well. We got to the last boss. But by the time we were going to grind on the last boss, it was like, seriously, dude, like, it was late. I was fading. Everybody, and
you're on the West Coast.
And I'm on the West Coast. People on the East Coast, it was like after 1 a.m. So
That's the other thing. Going to St. Louis, we have to get used to being 2 hours ahead of you.
yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, it was a ton of fun. So SWTOR Unite. It's also not too late to give to Extra Life. You have another couple days for the end of the year. No, a month or so to give to the end of the year. So we had a great time with SWTOR Unite. And yeah, man. I am not a big fan of Brian right now.
Yeah. What did I say that we?
Is he blaming the tank? Because it wasn't the tank's fault. It was
I blame the DPS that they weren't doing enough damage.
I blame his quote unquote rotation. So I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it at that.
So
and see
you
what he
button
says.
smashing.
Yeah, he's like, oh, is this is my rotation? Just hit all the buttons.
Okay, you say that, and I imagine Zoolander when they're trying to say the files are in the computer.
Yeah, he's like, what? Oh, that's great. Okay,
Yeah, actually, a little side note about going to St. Louis here.
sure.
You were mentioning there was a group of podcasters. Well, there's a podcaster I've started following on Instagram and Twitter, Skywalker Eve, and I can't remember what the name of the podcast she's in, but she's actually, I think she's based out of New York with some, but the people, podcast based out of San Francisco.
Right.
But they got picked up to be one of the. I think they got picked up to be one of the people on the show floor for Star Wars Celebrations.
Oh, really?
But what it just dawned on me is I'm going to be in St. Louis when Star Wars Celebrations happen.
Yeah, you will be.
I'm
And
only going to be 5 hours away. I might have to drive up and see our friends.
drive to see your friends, our friends. I'm
And
sad.
even though it's too late for me to get tickets, I might be able to crash in somebody's Airbnb and play some D&D with some people. And
you guys hear that Will's gonna crash your party? You're welcome.
I am going to crash your party. A large man coming to sleep on your couch.
You're welcome. He may or may not snore.
Oh
Okay.
no, it will happen.
All right, man. Let's get to some SWTOR news. We're a little behind, obviously. So when we were supposed to record last time, and we didn't say this really at the top of the show, but we were supposed to record. We weren't really going to take 2 weeks off this month, and unfortunately, my PC took a crash, and I'm back up and running clearly, but that was an issue. And then of course Thanksgiving week. So
Yeah, and I had the wedding.
and the wedding. So here we are, and stuff happened in the SWTOR community. There was a live stream. We actually have a date now of 5.10, 5.10, however you want to say it. So let's talk about a couple things, and I'm gonna gloss over a couple things, but it's looking up, I think, for guilds for sure. So
Awesome.
the PTS is now closed for 5.10. That just happened today or yesterday,
Right.
And which is good. That means they got all the feedback, and they're gonna go back and work on that, right? Okay, you shook your head. No, you did a thing.
I had a
Okay.
hiccup.
Okay, cool. So what? There's a couple other things that I thought were interesting. So one is during the live stream, Charles Boyd, they were talking about that you would have had to have completed some content before you started the storyline for Jedi Under Siege, and they were basically, I guess, in the live stream said something along the lines of you have to have completed all the Alliance alerts. But what they meant was you have to have finished one particular one. So they changed their plans, and it's pretty significant from what they said. The short version is when starting the first new storyline mission in 5.10, the light side arc and Alliance alert will autocomplete if it hasn't completed already.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it has to do with the romance options.
Okay.
So, other than that, everything else is going to stay the same. If you've already finished that storyline, you don't have to worry about it. It'll play out fine. But if you haven't finished it, you'll have to deal with that auto completing. Okay,
Okay.
just throwing that out there.
That's only in the Archon romance stuff, right? Or is it the whole? Well, it
I
is.
think
the-
it has to do with the storyline for 5.10.
right,
apparently.
because you yeah. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So we'll have a link in the show notes to it. There's a couple spoiler tags I didn't uncover because I didn't want to deal with that.
Of course.
But you can check that out. Feedback for the OSIS daily missions, and we were talking about wanting new dailies and stuff. Right?
exactly. I'm looking forward to these.
So Jackie Cow is how I'm going to pronounce it. CAO. She says, so the question is, following the most recent update, the daily heroic Hold the Line is still extremely overtuned and possible to solo. And this is the update on the PTS. And they said, well, she said, I'm Jackie, one of the world designers for OSIS. And they've been reading the feedback. And so really what it comes down to is they said we want to have some more difficult content that encourages group play, which is fine.
Well, it's like when I remember when the Oricon missions came out.
Yeah.
The heroic 2, and I had trouble with. I mean, I can solo it now because I've leveled up past it.
Yeah.
But if you're at level for a 2-man, you shouldn't be able to do by yourself.
Right. And so what they're saying is something to add a variety among the soloable content they have. To achieve that goal, they're reintroducing the Heroic 4 missions, which some of you may remember from the base game, which we all remember.
Right.
And these Heroics will be balanced for 4 players or 2 players with 2 companions. And they're not designed to be solo. So that's what it comes down to. Daggett.
Daggett, out.
Sorry, my dog entered.
Daggett, out.
Dag, go. Go.
Go, out.
Dude, get out of here. Sorry.
The one thing I hope they don't do with the Heroic Fours is if they... I don't want them to make them like they did Aurora Cannon before they fixed it. I don't want there to be something where you absolutely have to have 4 characters flipping a switch to make it work.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression that was the case. I
Okay.
just think it's gonna
harder
be,
content.
It's gonna be difficult DPS wise and stuff to where
Right.
you wouldn't probably be able to do it anyway. But if you had Uber characters, maybe, who knows?
Well, yeah, well, I wouldn't expect you to be able to solo an at-level 4 Heroic 4, but, I mean, 2 with 2 companions should be fine.
Yeah,
The thing with the Aurora Cannon, even if you had 2 with 2 companions, you couldn't do it because you needed 4
because
people
you had
to
to
flip
flick
a
those
switch.
switches.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So the next thing in here is it says the Masterwork gearing plans for PTS, and I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. And this was about 10 days ago they posted this. There's a bunch of stuff in there that talks about Masterwork gear and Masterwork data crystals and all this stuff. We don't talk about gearing too much on this show.
Not so much.
But the TLDR I am going to read. It says if a player simply does 2 weekly missions of their chosen playstyle, they'll be able to acquire a minimum of 252 pieces per week. And this does not include crossing over to both PvP and PvE, and any Masterwork data crystals or drops from command crates, or purchasing any crafted versions of this gear, which can speed up your acquisitions of Masterwork gear. So, of course, they've already collected all the feedback on that. I'm just throwing that out there. But again, there's obviously some frustration with some of this stuff. But again, we'll see how it plays out. I wasn't able to get on the PTS, unfortunately.
You know, I've been able to be... I think the last time I was on the PTS was getting ready for Yavin 4.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Okay, so the discussion topics for this week are going to be guild leveling, because that's exciting, and guild perks, and the official launch date of 5.10, which I'll just say now, is going to be December 11th. That got announced today.
Happy birthday to me.
It got announced today. So, that said, the pretty large update to the PTS. So there's guild leveling, guild perks, and guild conquest stuff. Now, I'm going to go to the leveling thing really quick. So I'm actually, you know what? I just might nutshell this whole thing. So really what it comes down to is guilds will be able to level, and as they level, they'll be able, there's a cap each week, but what they'll be able to do is be able to get perks when they get to certain levels. And the way that you gain experience is by doing conquest stuff.
Okay.
Right? Which I don't know, makes sense to me. And it says every time a guild levels up, a few things happen. They receive a fixed amount of guild commendations, and they're used to purchase guild perks. The amount of XP, CXP, and reputation earned by the guild increases, and they start at 5 and go up from there. And it says all specific guild level breakpoints, guilds will qualify to purchase higher level tiers of guild perks. So, you know, it's basically a guild progression system, which I think is pretty legit.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the reputation system.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
for guild.
And so the perks, the perks.
I'll oops you.
Yeah. So what's a guild perk? Obviously, it's a thing. What I didn't realize, and actually I was listening to Bad Feeling earlier, what I didn't realize is that the guild perks will kind of expire, which is kind of an interesting thing I'm not that excited about. So I'll just say this. So it says guild perks have up to 3 costs. It'd be credits, guild commendations, reinforcement modules. So there's a whole system in here. But really what it comes down to is that you can get stuff, but again, it kind of times out after a certain amount of time.
Right.
But some of the perks are pretty cool. It's like let me find the examples here. Perk details. It says summon the guild bank, grant activated ability to summon the guild bank for the player, duration 3 minutes, perk duration, so that's pretty cool. And then it says hold on, where's the other one? Last part, oh, that's just one example, is summon the guild bank. What I've heard too is that there's ones where you can resurrect everybody in a wipe. So
Oh,
when
really?
everybody dies, you can bring everybody, or you can resurrect everybody at once, stuff
Wow.
like that. So I mean, I'm certain this is something they'll be able to play with quite a bit. Like I said, I missed the live stream, and there's a lot of other stuff going on there, but we're also behind on the game, especially by the time you hear this. So you already know what's going on in 5.10, but it's actually pretty exciting for guilds, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think so too.
Anything else on that?
No, I'm pretty good.
Cool. I wanted to throw a couple of general gaming stuff in here just because we talked about some of this last week.
Right.
Fallout 76, although negative reviews,
Yeah, I know you got it. What did you think so far?
I haven't been able to play it very much, honestly.
Because your computer went down.
Because my computer died and various other things. So I'll in the next couple of weeks I'll kind of give my review when I get a little more time. I like it so far. It's a beautiful game and it's pretty cool. I just know a lot of the issues are bugs and some other issues, but there's a patch that's coming up that's going to enable the push to talk feature for the PC, because I actually turned off the voice thing because it was really weird when I got into the game. I just was hearing people talking like Xbox Live days, and I hate that. And
That's
so
weird.
I just turned that off. And they're going to do a respec feature, and that's coming up. There's 2 updates coming up. And so, I mean, I'll give you my kind of initial thing. I really love the universe. I don't feel like there's as much to do as in normal Fallout games, but I think it's because I haven't gotten together with my friends and tried anything.
Right.
And I only played the game for like, I don't know, a few hours. So, and a lot of that I was asleep. Because like I said, when I finally was playing, I was like, I'm awake. I'm not awake. Howdy, Lone Ranger. Okay, so next thing, Anthem teases new trailer for this year's Game Awards, which is actually, I think, next week. Let me check this. So Anthem, there might be a new trailer, and I think it's going to happen. Yeah. So the tweet is, there's a storm coming. Watch the all-new Anthem game trailer December 6th.
Ooh, coming up quick.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about
Yeah, next Friday, I think.
Next Friday-ish? Saturday? Something like that. Friday or Saturday. BioWare teases the big Mass Effect news. Okay, it's not really a tease. So really what it is they haven't given up on Mass Effect. There's been some articles that have come out recently, and I think this is leading up to what we were just talking about, but they're not done with Dragon Age. They're not done with Mass Effect, but everything's kind of went towards Anthem at this point.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But they're not done with Mass Effect, and that's exciting for Mass Effect fans. So M7 Day or N7 Day just has come and gone, and people are like, oh, we're not going to get a new game. But yeah, it's going to happen. It says, here's the thing. Mass Effect is definitely still happening. That franchise is much too valuable for EA not to do anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big IP, you have to do something with it.
I mean, it's a whole world, and they're not going to get rid of that just because they're working on some new IP. So they'll get back to it. All right, so I thought this was kind of interesting. The PlayStation 5.
Yeah, this is really. I read this and I really had to shake my head a couple times looking at it.
So PlayStation, there's a new patent that hints at a possible cartridge format, and
PlayStation's never been cartridge.
right. And the reason they're doing it is, okay, there's a quote in here that relates to the Switch, which I won't talk too much about right now. Today, we may. I don't know.
The Switch is actually.
My kids are probably asleep. We're gonna end up with a Switch here pretty soon.
Oh, nice. It's gotten bigger than I thought it would. It's been a more popular seller than I thought it would.
It's a pretty cool concept, but it from what I understand is they're seeing the appeal of having some sort of mobile console and mobile format available,
Right.
like the Switch. So it's like, okay, so you have the Switch and you're like, okay, I'm playing. Oh, I want to keep playing, and you just pick it up and go.
Yeah.
Right. And the way to do that is cartridge format, apparently. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'd be kind of like the Discman. Like, you don't want to be juggling something around that has a skippable disc.
Exactly. And also, speaking of Sony, I put this in here on purpose. It looks like PlayStation Sony is going to be skipping E3 in 2019.
They
They were the highlight of the last E3.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, there's only 2 reasons to do it. One, the thing that they're working on won't be ready, Or two,
And it said the PlayStation 5 is
right.
not close.
Or two, they're going to be doing something else. A la reason when we didn't have Marvel at Comic-Con is because they were doing Disney D23.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Okay. Cool. Okay, ready?
Ready.
Hold on. Hello?
Pew pew.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna pew pew. Ready? Sorry.
I was raised to do one thing. But I've got nothing to fight for.
Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started.
All right, ready?
Ready.
So there's almost no Star Wars news, honestly, to be for real. But I managed to cobble some things together today. I think worth talking about.
Yeah, there's a couple of what do we call them?
Nuggets?
Trivia nuggets.
You say trivial?
Trivia.
Oh, cool. Okay, so Harrison Ford. I love this story. Okay, I put the link in the show notes. The short version is this. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that this site is muted so we don't get stuff. Hold on. Okay, so turns out while shooting Empire Strikes Back, they were in a very remote, very snowy location.
Oh, I'm sure.
And to get to that location, there was a series of transportation options that Mr. Ford was going to have to take. Okay? So they called me saying, this is him talking. They called me saying that they'd like me to come immediately the next day to be available to start shooting. And this is all hinging on a book called, it's an upcoming book from Entertainment Weekly. That has to do with behind the scenes stuff with the original trilogy, right?
Okay.
So it says they called me for that, and he says I had to bring my costume with me. I got off the plane in Norway, and there was a guy with a sign with my name on it. He put me in a car. He did not speak a word of English. He drove me to a train station, took my bag out of the back, put me in the train station. I followed my bag and sat down on the bench, and nobody spoke English. I had no idea where in the world I was going or how to get there. The best part is, he says, there was a guy man in the station. He had a little desk, blah, blah, blah. And he says, as I went, I later found out 3 hours in the wrong direction.
Oh.
They went on the tracks and had to go back. Then we swiveled around and went 3 hours back. But my favorite part is he says the only way, this is someone else talking. He says the only way to get him to his hotel was to send the plow, which was the train plow to keep the line clear down at nighttime. He said the Norwegians have a tradition. When you open a bottle, you never close it. So when they got there, they kind of fell off the train. So he was drinking with the train conductor.
That's funny.
And so by the time he got there, he was like, yeah, I'm out.
He's a little faded.
I love stories like that, but at the same time, like, I just don't even know where they could have been, dude. Like, why did they have to shoot there? Poor Harrison.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I never really knew he was much of a drinker.
Well, I don't know. I guess I always assume.
Yeah, but you just never hear stories of him.
True.
This is kind of cool.
But I don't know. I like Scotch, and I was like, oh, Scotch? Harrison Ford? What? And then it was like 10 hours. So
That's a long.
So by the time he got there, I was like, yeah, he needs to take a nap. All right, so this might be my favorite story of the week. Did you see this?
I did not see it, but I just read your headline.
So the headline is, Mark Hamill once suggested George Lucas that Boba Fett should be Luke Skywalker's mother. Now,
can you imagine Shmi as Boba Fett?
I love it. So he says, in a Twitter post from Tatooine Sons, a Star Wars podcast, they asked Hamill if the rumor about Mama Fett was true. Because what the original tweet said was, I can't find it. Oh, he says, here it is. He says, while we recorded this coming week's episode, one of the boys said that between 5 and 6, there was a theory that Boba Fett was actually Luke's mother. Crazier, though, is that the hosts claim that Mark Hamill himself was all in on this. This can't be true. And then Mark Hamill responded to the tweet, and he said, I once suggested to George as the only way we could top Vader being my father. I envisioned her as a double agent working clandestinely for the rebels. Spoiler alert, he didn't like my idea. I just love that. I just think that's cool. And of course, we have John Williams. He did the score for Galaxy's Edge, and there's some sound clips in the link I have in here.
Awesome.
Plus some footage of the park. We don't have enough time to go through that.
Right. Well, we've already heard that he was the episode 9 is going to be his last Star Wars film.
Right.
But he was going to be doing the ambiance music for Galaxy's Edge.
Absolutely. And I guess as far as the tracks go, you get the idea of what the names of the rides are called and stuff.
Okay, gotcha.
So I don't want to dive into that quite yet, but
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And John Williams, like I said, he was in and out of the hospital. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad he's getting this done right now. So, especially before we get to what we're going to talk about in a minute. In light of all the Chuck Wendig stuff, they canceled the Shadow of Vader miniseries. That's Star Wars Comics news. We assumed this was going to happen.
Yeah, well, it was only going to be a 5-issue run anyways, right? And I think he'd already done 3, and I just think that they finished off the 5 and they're not doing any more.
Yeah, and I think they're just done. So, which makes sense. And what was this one? Oh, I put this one in. Okay, so this is weird. I don't know if anyone want to talk about this, but so a UK foreign secretary claimed that George Lucas planned to shoot the Obi-Wan Kenobi movie. Now, I'm going to read you the quote. You tell me what you think.
Okay.
He said, according to the Spectator, Johnson claimed the UK has by far the most dynamic creative culture and media industries. He went on, he said, which was the biggest grossing movie last year? Star Wars. And where does George Lucas propose to make a follow-up about Obi-Wan Kenobi? Northern Ireland. So that got people worked up because it's like George Lucas is going to shoot it.
Yeah, right?
But, if he had just said Lucas, maybe not, right? Lucasfilm.
Yeah, I don't think he's a reliable narrator.
No. This is obviously the internet speculating and stuff. But what if? This is the only reason I brought it up. Because I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, what if George Lucas came back to direct a Star Wars film?
I don't think it'd work out. One, he's never been the strongest director of Star Wars films.
True.
The better time was when he was always the story arc person, and he gave up the reins to Irving Kershner or Lawrence Kasdan or whatnot. Actually, I'm gonna say he reminds me of Jerry Jones, the GM manager of the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
He's a strong owner, but he's not as good a GM.
No. Yeah.
And the thing is that the part that Lucas was always the best at, he's forgone, and he's given that over to Kathleen Kennedy.
True.
Kind of like the Kevin Feige type role for Marvel. The overall story person. There's no way that he could just be a director cog in the machine.
Good point, dude. I think it's hilarious that people gave this more thought.
I know, right?
Then he misspoke and probably didn't know George Lucas didn't own the franchise anymore.
Exactly.
That's what I thought originally. But anyway, we got one more thing. Galaxy of Adventures. We talked about this already.
We did. If you watched our trailer time segment, or if you haven't yet, Lucasfilm is going to be doing a kid-friendly YouTube channel, and they're going to be doing a series of shorts called Galaxy of Adventure. And we watched the trailer earlier in trailer time, which if you want to see, you can go to our Patreon page. But the cool thing is it seems to be vignette animated reenactments of scenes from the original trilogy.
Which I think is going to be cool.
I think it looks really badass.
And super stylized art form. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's not quite as anime as Resistance.
Right. Nice.
But it's a little bit more stylized than, say, Rebels.
For sure. And I guess I didn't put a link in for this one, but Disney filed a patent for the most realistic lightsaber ever. And I'll put a link into it by the time you get the show notes. But what was cool about this is that they put the patent in, and it's going to be like, how like a tape measure comes out? Like it's supposed to come out kind of like a tape measure and actually light up and stuff. And it's supposed to be the most realistic one to date.
I was hoping the scene from How I Met Your Mother was finally going to come true, and we're going to have a lightsaber that we can carve turkey with.
No. But the cool thing about this particular lightsaber, though, is apparently it's supposed to look like it does in the movies when they ignite it.
Okay.
So I'm hoping
that it comes out.
it comes out like, and it's lighted up
Right.
as it's coming. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the idea behind it.
That they try to do with the plastic ones right now, but it's just that the light's going out plastic and the plastic's always out.
Exactly. So, all right, man.
Cool.
Should we get to our last section and talk about the sad thing?
Yeah, let's get to our last section.
I can't imagine any kind of future where I'm a hero.
Well, you're not.
In the future, none of you are heroes. You're legends.
I actually have some Legends of Tomorrow news today.
Do you know?
I have some Legends of Tomorrow news today.
Wow.
See the time thing there?
I saw how you were doing
so
that.
let's just move on. All right, so discussion topic, obviously. Top of the show, obviously, when we recorded last, I put the last show out a few days after this thing happened, and it was because we recorded our last show literally, 3 days before it happened?
Yeah.
And that is the death, of course, of Stanley.
Yeah, it's tragic. And we've seen so much outpouring of grief and solidarity among fans and filmmakers alike.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's the fact that it almost happened a year after his wife died.
Right. So the thing about this actually hit me pretty hard. I had a really hard day that day, and it was a Sunday, a rare Sunday where I wasn't golfing.
Right.
And I was at the house, and I saw that pop up. I'm watching the kids. I was like, really? And this is something we've been talking about quite a bit anyway.
Right.
And talking about the possibility of it happening. I know he's been sick for like the last year or so and that kind of thing. But this doesn't, and this is something I was talking to some of my students and stuff about. It's like, well, when someone like this passes, like you can't help but think of the impact of that person.
Right.
And this particular person really shaped what we look at as geek culture now. You know, we love what we love. A lot of what we love is because of Stan Lee. This idea that you can become a superhero or latch onto a superhero, identify with a superhero. And, you know, not only that, but the thing that frustrates me the most is that I don't want to say that. I basically want to say is that 95, what is he, 95 when he passed?
Yeah.
We got 95 years of an amazing person.
Absolutely. And, the thing that always, I mean, he did cameos, he did all, whatever.
Right.
The thing that really jumps out at me is the scenes he filmed for Kevin Smith's Mallrats.
Yeah.
Because that little scene, which Kevin Smith wrote, really encapsulates what he basically gave to multiple generations.
Yeah.
And it's the ability to see human emotion in non-human characters.
Yeah.
Right? And there's always that kind of meme that the Marvel world is full of humans trying to be gods.
Yeah.
And the DC world is gods trying to be humans.
Right.
And then one exception is Thor and Superman in either one, right?
Right.
Or Thor and Batman. And it just dawns on me that, he was trying to talk about the fact that humans could become gods of their own universe.
Yeah.
They had that power, but they also were broken inside, and that's why he said the Thing was a way for him to, to protect himself from
Right.
the inner turmoil and whatnot. The Hulk was, a rage of emotion, and it's brilliant that he uses fantastical ways to solidify our own human feelings.
Exactly. So man, I mean, we finally I don't want to say we finally lost him, but it was a matter of time, and we lost a titan of geek culture.
Yeah, I would like to say that we got an extra 3 years out of him because I almost ran him down.
Yeah, you almost killed the man.
I
Accidentally.
almost killed him. You know, a fat podcaster almost running over him at Silicon
I had
Valley.
to literally
Comic-Con.
grab you and be like, "Please
Seriously.
don't run Stanley over."
I was just booking through the show floor, and all of a sudden I just feel a tug on my backpack that I'm wearing, and I'm like, "What the fuck, man?" And then he turns around and goes, "Dude, you almost killed Stan Lee." And I look over, and he's just hobbling past me with security around him. I'm like, "Dude, I almost killed him."
And this is, Silicon Valley Comic-Con. That's the closest I've ever been to Stan Lee. And watching him walk by, smiling at people, waving at people. Granted, he has his entourage around. I'm sure one of those guys would have
Shoved me out of the way.
laid you out real nicely had you gotten close to him.
Oh, I would have gotten
or closer to him.
I would have gotten a forearm shiver right to the chest.
But yeah, man. I mean, he showed up everywhere.
Everywhere.
And he talked to everybody, and he realized, I think, early on that when you're gonna if you're gonna create heroes, you have to also be a hero.
Yeah.
And I think that was the biggest takeaway anytime I saw him, like on Comic Book Man or anywhere. He was talking like, you know what, you're here because you love what I've done, and you're looking up to me and the people I created, and that's it. You have to represent what you've created, you know?
Exactly. You know, it actually kind of dawns on me now. I mean, I hadn't thought about this before, but the things that he and Kevin Smith have in common just amaze me. And it boils down to the famous, I think it's Eudora Welty quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world."
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it's not quite that. It's the fact that, I mean, well, it's almost exactly that. It's like they both saw the world not exactly how they think it should be, and the best way that they can do it is by creating art that makes people feel like they can do what they can do to help.
It's absolutely. Yep.
And
Yep.
that's what I think is best about both of them.
Yeah. Well, I knew the day would come, and I'm glad I got to say things on mic about the great Stan Lee.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that's happened, and my brother actually sent me a link to this shortly after it happened, was 30 like artistic memes that people had drawn to commemorate it. One of my favorites that reminded me so much of when Mel Blanc died.
Yeah.
Mel Blanc was the
one of the greatest.
the godfather of voice actors for the Warner Brothers.
What's that?
For the Warner Brothers universe, was when he passed away, they did a piece of art where it showed a stand-up mic with a spotlight on it, and it's empty. Nobody's standing at the mic. And off to the side, it showed all the characters he had voiced. So it was, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Porky Pig and all those characters. And they all had their head bowed, and all it said was speechless because they had lost their voice. And it was kind of like that where it showed, I saw a piece of art where it showed Stanley walking away, and all you saw, the point of view was you were standing behind a whole bunch of people holding up their hands, waving goodbye. So all you saw was a frame full of their hands.
Right.
But you saw the Hulk, you saw Iron Man, you saw Captain
amazing.
America, you saw all these people that he had created or helped
awesome.
other people create, saying goodbye to him. It was really kind of cool.
Wow. Well, as Smith says, he will be missed. Big bucket of win and all that. But honestly, man, it hit me hard. And we're gonna Geeks will keep going, and he left us plenty. He left us plenty to I don't know.
Pick up the torch and carry on.
I mean, honestly, man, so many heroes he left that we can worship, even though he's gone. So
Absolutely.
awesome.
Unfortunately, he was not the only person to pass away this week. We also lost a wonderful female screenwriter named Gloria Katz.
Yeah.
I guarantee you don't know her name. But she was a script doctor on the original Star Wars script.
Right.
Basically, what her and her husband were screenwriters, a screenwriting team. And I'll mention some of the other things they did on their own. But basically, they were really good friends with George Lucas. They had actually helped with him write the screenplay for American Graffiti, which they got nominated for an Oscar for.
Nice.
So they've been with him since the beginning. And basically what Gloria said about the Star Wars script is that George handed it to her and her husband and said, "Fix this," because he didn't want, in her words, he didn't want another THX 1138 debacle.
Right.
And so she said that her and her husband are responsible for about 30% of the entire Star Wars script, including the mannerisms and the strong feminist point of view of Leia.
For Leia, yeah.
Because before that, she was basically a damsel in distress.
Right.
and they made it key that almost every major action scene that she's involved in, she's the first person to act.
Yeah.
And that's what they contributed. So they majorly created what the modern mythos is of Leia.
Yeah.
On the good and bad side of what they later on did, on the bad side, they wrote Howard the Duck.
Yeah, Howard the Duck. I saw that one on there.
But on the plus side, they wrote Temple of Doom.
Oh, I love Temple of Doom.
So
that's my favorite Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah, it's a darker one. That's probably why.
Yeah, people don't like that one as much, but I love that one.
Yeah, you always like the darker
I mean,
stuff.
look, you pull a heart at a homeboy's chest, and you got me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you got me there, dude.
But they did a couple of other things here. Let me bring it up here really quick. Sorry, it's just taking a second to load.
Dead air.
So they wrote Temple of Doom. They also wrote Lucky Lady, Messiah of Evil, French Postcards, Best Defense.
Oh, okay.
Which is the Eddie Murphy and the guy he did Trading Places with.
I don't know.
Dan Aykroyd.
Okay.
Where they're trying to sell tanks.
Got it.
It's a funny movie from the 80s, and so they did Best Defense as well, so I thought that was pretty cool. And like I said, they were nominated for an Academy Award for American Graffiti, which if you haven't seen it, is fantastic.
Nice. All right, so do you know anything about this next story? It's developing. It just came up a couple days ago.
No, I hadn't heard about
as
this.
Disney and Fox is facing a $1.75 billion lawsuit over the theme park, and we're in the theme park news now.
Which theme park?
Okay, so in a new report, it's been revealed that both Disney and Fox are now facing that $1.75 billion lawsuit from one Genting Malaysia Berhad. That lawsuit came that in light of Disney-Fox merger, Fox pulled the plug, this is important, on a Fox World theme park that was to be built in the Malaysian capital of Kuala Lumpur. Okay? The theme park was to be the first-class, world-class park, which was themed after various 20th century Fox properties. And one of the first parks described in the lawsuit would have utilized Fox film franchises like Ice Age, Planet of the Apes, for its rides, activities, and aesthetic. So,
which wouldn't be a bad thing.
No. But the lawsuit says that here's what the lawsuit filing in Los Angeles said, alleges about the Disney-Fox deal and how it has unfairly impacted the Malaysia Berhad deal. On information and belief, Fox's soon-to-be owner Disney is now calling the shots, and it says, and its objective was no longer renegotiation of the agreement, but termination, permitting the Fox brand to attach a theme park over which Fox would have no control for, which would amount to decades, which would have created business complications for Disney, etc. So it sounds like they were supposed to be working on a theme park or working on an idea for a theme park, and then because of the merger, they pulled the plug, and they're not happy about it.
Which it completely makes sense that they would pull the plug on it, because if you don't, then you're going to be dealing with a whole bunch of cross-company or cross-corporate legal and property right entanglements, very much like Sony with Spider-Man
Right.
and Fantastic Four or whatnot. And so they just want to nip it in the bud. I'm sure the people who are suing, I mean, I don't know the contract at all, but I'm sure there was some sort of getting out of it clause.
It had to be.
Yeah, so I think they're just suing because I'm sure they did put some money up front. But once you knew that Fox was buying, or Disney was buying Fox, you knew there was no way that was going to happen.
Well, and of course, Disney and Fox made a statement to Deadline saying, this lawsuit is entirely without merit, as the complaint itself makes it clear. Genting has been failing to meet the agreed on deadlines for several years, long before the agreement, etc. So it sounds like there was some issues before that anyway. But
Exactly.
But yeah, I thought that's interesting. That's a lot of money to be lawsuiting about.
It is. I mean, but in the grand scheme of things for Disney, really not that much.
They made that this morning.
Yeah, it's
They made that.
it's the
like,
equivalent of one Avatar.
They made that this week.
It's one Black Panther.
Mhm.
It's one Avengers movie. But the thing is I also think that by withdrawing the thing, Disney would hold the rights to be able to create their own Fox World at, say, Disney World.
Which I am 100% certain why they're not trying to continue that project.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, I mean, they've already started building into the whole side non-exactly Disney thing with Avatar Land.
Right.
So, you know, we already know they're willing to go to that space.
Right. All right, man. We only have a few stories left here before we get out of 150. But Netflix, we're into crossing the streams territory. We got a big Bebop.
I know. Have you heard this?
I've heard.
They are doing a live-action version of Cowboy Bebop.
I'm pretty excited about this.
20 years ago when we first met, 19 years ago when we first met, you were trying to get me into a couple of different animes, one of them being Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
And it was it Bubblegum Crisis or
No,
Trigun?
Dragon Ball Z.
No, Trigun. Wasn't it Trigun?
No. I was watching a couple different ones. Maybe I was done with Dragon Ball Z by then. I don't remember.
I think so.
But,
Anyways,
but I know
basically,
Bebop was the big one.
Cowboy Bebop was the one that really stuck out at me. But what I loved is there was a great Twitter response, and it said, "We already have a great
Gungan.
live." What?
Gungan. That's what you're thinking
Yes.
of. Yeah.
And the Twitter response is, "We already have a great live action Cowboy Bebop. It's called Firefly."
Yeah, exactly. But I think they could kind of bring back that Firefly-ish vibe if they did it right, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm actually looking forward to this. I will definitely watch this.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so what are we watching?
Well, we have a couple of TV news. Blade Runner is doing an anime that's going to be coming to Adult Swim. If you remember, shortly after the most recent Blade Runner movie, the director, Denis Villeneuve, who's fantastic, did a short anime called Blade Runner 2049.
Yep.
And it got good reviews. And so they're basically just doing an anime series for Adult Swim.
Sounds good.
Also, there's a book that came out a few years ago called Console Wars.
Right.
About the basically the console wars of the 80s and 90s between Nintendo and Sega. It has been optioned by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg.
Nice.
Because they wrote the foreword for the book. And they're turning it into a limited miniseries.
Oh, kind of like the Toys That Made Us kind of thing?
Exactly.
Oh, I love it.
So
I love that
they're
idea.
shopping it around. They don't have a network yet, but they're trying to shop it around.
Oh, I love that idea, dude. I was one of those people that rather than pick a side, I just had them both.
Had both, yeah.
But I loved my Nintendo. That was my first thing. But like I said, I still have my Sega Genesis in the attic. You know what I mean? And my Nintendo. So.
Do you still have Sonic, like the original
Oh, yeah.
Sonic?
I have Sonic. I have my the first video game I ever received was The Legend of Zelda, the original one, in the gold cartridge.
Oh, wow.
I still have that up there too.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't mess around, dude.
You don't mess.
I don't play. Right.
So what have you been watching lately?
Oh man, mostly just honestly, we've been watching Doctor Who, which is great. Good Place, still, and you don't watch Superstore, do you?
No, it's on my list, but I haven't started it yet.
I love Superstore. So those are the three main ones, and of course, Big Bang. Excuse me, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I'm up to date on Big Bang. The one thing is I mentioned it a few weeks ago, but I had just discovered Adam Ruins Everything.
Oh, I've heard that's good.
And I finally finished the first two seasons.
Okay.
The night before the new one premiered a couple nights ago.
Nice.
So I just watched the premiere of season 3, which was called Adam Ruins Guns. And but I also have been watching. If you don't remember, if you go back to our New Year's Eve or New Year's show from last year, we talked about our 10 favorite things that we had from the previous year.
Oh, right.
Which
right.
I hope we'll do again this year.
Yeah, we will.
And on my list was a couple of stand-ups, and one of them was the Michelle Wolf, Nice Lady stand-up, but the big one was Hassan Minaj's Homecoming King.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Hassan Minaj has his own show on Netflix now called Patriot Act.
We watched a few more episodes of it the other night. I love it. Dude.
Yeah, I'm caught up on it now, and I just love it because
But they've already canceled it.
They've already canceled it? No.
Yeah. I heard they already canceled it.
I haven't heard anything about that.
But he's also been kind of alluding to it in the last couple episodes, I think.
Well, he has no problem making fun of Netflix.
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure they've canceled it.
I'll have to check it
You
out.
have to look
But
it up.
I'll look it up here while we're talking about another story. But one thing I loved about it was that he would talk to the audience, he'd talk to the camera,
Yeah.
he'd make great jokes.
No, he's good.
Yeah.
And like I said, I watched some other stand-ups. Adam Sandler, like I said, is really good. One of the other things I've been watching is what is it? I've been watching something on YouTube. Will appreciate this. This is perfect 150 because I love me some Sans Pants on YouTube. Joel Joel Dusher and Jackson Bailey from Sanspants Radio did a YouTube thing on Sanspants CinemaScope called Saucy Boys. It's the best and worst thing you've probably ever seen, and I love it. So that's what I've been watching. All right, dude. Should we move on? Did you find the answer to that?
It says the first season was going to consist of 32 episodes. They've done 6, and no word of it being canceled.
Really? I thought I saw something that popped up that said it was canceled. So yeah, I could be wrong.
Nope. It's got a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
No, it's an amazing show. That's why I was surprised. But
70 out of 100 on Metacritic. 78 out of 100 on Metacritic, which is pretty darn good.
You just keep going. That's
yeah.
fine.
So yeah, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
All right, cool. I love it. I love the show. It's good. All right, man. So real reviews time. Kingsman.
Yeah, we got some Kingsman news, and if you remember a couple episodes ago, I was talking about how they're doing a Kingsman prequel.
Yeah.
And they're already filming, or they're filming that starting in January. Well, it turns out and it's got a 4.5 month shooting schedule, so it'll be done by mid-May. Well, it has been dropped that Matthew Vaughn, who does the Kingsman movies, and he also did a couple of the X-Men movies, Days of Future Past and First Class. That he's actually going to go ahead and do Kingsman 3 right after that. They're going to start production on that in the 5th one, or in May to June.
Nice.
But the thing is the first one has a great cast, and it's going to take place during World War One. And Kingsman 3 is going to tie up the end of the trilogy, so to speak, of Taron Egerton and the Colin Firth characters.
Oh, cool. All right. Sounds good to me. I love the Kingsman stuff, too. That stuff's brilliantly done.
Oh, so much fun.
So good. All right. So because this is our 150th episode, I tried to throw something in all the categories. So we haven't talked Berlanti in a long time. Legend of Tomorrow apparently is having Pee Wee Herman cameo.
Oh, gosh, that's going to be awesome.
And I don't know why or when or what, but it's going to be amazing.
Is it that Paul Rubens is going to be making, or is it the actual character?
I think, from what I understood,
they're going to have to go into the 80s or something.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on, but I need to catch up because that was our favorite show, was that one. So I threw that in there. So
I love how our designated Kingsman super fan in the group is Michaela, and she comes out and yells, "Lancelot is not dead," who's a character she loves who passed away in the second movie.
Yeah, he gone.
She.
I
Anyways.
don't know. I don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm way behind on Berlantiverse, and all the seasons of the Berlantiverse are getting good reviews so far. Elseworlds is coming up in a couple of weeks. I really need to catch up on that because I'm like a season behind on everyone.
For sure. All right, man. So DCEU news: Blue Beetle is going to get a live action movie that just got announced today.
Okay, well that's been in the talks for years, but if it's finally getting an announcement, that's big.
It just got an announcement today. I don't know if it's any more details beyond that. Let me take a quick look. This was on the Nerdist, and yeah, it just basically just said that's what's happening. Development at Warner Brothers as a film. So
all right,
there we are.
We just have a few little bits and pieces of Marvel news, and we also basically come out of the fact that the Russo brothers are doing a lot of
talking.
It's not quite a lot of junket stuff because they're not really pushing Avengers 4 yet. But they're doing a lot of circuit engagements. Okay. And so basically they came out and said that they considered putting the Marvel's Netflix heroes into the Infinity War.
Yeah, I read this earlier.
But the two things that made them decide not to do that was, one, we already had like 67 speaking hero roles.
Way too many.
By introducing the Defenders into it, you would also have all their supporting cast. Colleen Wing and the Night Nurse and all them.
You just can't bring in like the 4 Defenders and be like, okay, they're here without the rest of what makes them who they are.
Exactly. You know? And then the second thing is then you would have to then you'd really have to pay more attention to continuity.
Yeah.
And you'd have to make sure that it all lines up, which is one of the things that they're trying to solve with Spider-Man Homecoming. Because that kind of screwed up the continuity by saying it took place 8 years after the Battle of New York when it really didn't.
When it didn't, right.
It was 4 years after.
Okay.
So just little things like that. Second, one of the Russo brothers has come out and said that Chris Evans isn't necessarily done.
Yeah, I read
with
this,
Captain America.
but I don't know what they mean by that. But
I don't think that they're going to make any more Captain America movies.
Right.
But I think they'll be doing, and I don't think he'll do any more like Avengers type movies. But he might slip in on the odd project here and there, kind of like Iron Man was in Spider-Man.
yeah, it'd be cool if he just showed up like like that.
Oh,
in
like
a
it would totally,
mentor-ish role,
it would totally make sense for him
Yeah.
to pop into, say, Black Widow or
that makes sense.
something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
And then the last thing is the Russo brothers are stepping away from doing Marvel stuff for a while. They're going to do a couple other projects, and they said that they would really come back to Marvel to do Secret Wars, which is their favorite storyline.
Yeah, it's a great storyline.
The issue with that is that they would want to do the 1984 version, which is good, but the 2015 version would fix all of the timeline inconsistencies if they're trying to bring in the X-Men and the Fantastic Four.
Right, and I know that was a big push a few years ago with the new Secret Wars. I have some of them behind me, but like not that you can see, but in the box. But yeah, the new Secret Wars would be the way to go, I think.
Yeah, I think so
And
too.
I think if they, I think that would be something that was hitting the negotiation table. It's like, well, you want to do it, but you got to do the 2015 one.
Right.
So
Which is fairly similar. It's just, with updated characters
Sure.
and, other things. All right, so we got a little bit of Sony news. What's going on?
yeah, so the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse animated deal,
Which looks fantastic.
which looks amazing, and I think we watched a trailer a couple
We
weeks ago,
did.
didn't we? And it says launches with a 100% positive score on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, granted, there was less than 20 reviews when this launched, but 100% positive score is a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, other things that have done 100% positive coming out was Infinity War and Get Out.
Yeah, and it just looks great. And my kids, I showed them the trailer; they're excited. Like we're gonna check
What
it
I
out.
love is that the Spider-Man Noir character is voiced by Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. All right, so another big thing, an all-female Spider-Man spinoff has been announced, and this
Which is because you could do Spider-Woman, Spider-Gwen.
Yep, and that's exactly what they're doing. So it looks like Sony's expanding its Spider-Verse universe with a new spin-off starring Spider-Gwen and several other female members of the Spider-Man universe. I was literally wearing my Spider-Gwen t-shirt yesterday at work last night.
Yeah, because you got Spider-Gwen, you've got Spider-Woman, you've got Silk.
Yep.
Is
That's
another one?
what it says. It says Spider-Woman, Silk, Madam Web, Spider-Gwen, and others. So yeah,
Very cool.
that's gonna be cool, man. I am looking forward to that. Merchandise, because in the holiday season and it's episode 150, ugly sweaters on Amazon. There's a link, show notes. I'll get us an Amazon link soon. But ugly sweaters, they're terrible. But oh my god, dude, I'll show you this. Look at that Deadpool one. How amazing does
That's
that
cool.
Deadpool one look? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there's like these are all Game of Thrones ones. There's one that says I drink eggnog and I know things, and it says deck. It says deck wall, and in between it's the wall. Ah, come on,
That's funny.
it's amazing. Stuff like that.
It's just
makes
I
me
don't
happy.
like sweaters.
I don't either.
If they had
But
ugly sweatshirts, I would definitely be.
I
on
have a
board.
couple ugly sweater T-shirts.
Okay.
They look like ugly sweaters, but like
They're
it's a
t-shirts.
T-shirt. So I'll be wearing those. Anywho, all right. So Smod news.
Yeah. So why isn't Ben Affleck talking to Kevin Smith?
Any ideas?
I have no idea.
Well, it makes sense when you hear about it. So I guess on Twitter, Smith kind of confirmed. He said, "Well, actually, I'm just gonna read the quote." He said, "Somebody called him out and he said, why would he not talk to you?" And he says, "If I had to guess, it's because one of us has a big mouth and told too many candid stories that sometimes weren't his to tell, and the other one is Ben." So I mean. It makes sense. It's
I don't
sad.
think he's actually told any embarrassing stories.
But he's talked about he's talked about Affleck's genitals multiple times. I'm just saying, dude. I mean, Affleck, I think would be a good sport about it, but at his current star status, probably doesn't want Kevin Smith being like, and then one time I saw Affleck's schlong and I did this, and what I'm
especially
saying.
with him going through rehab now.
Exactly.
And all that stuff.
There's all kinds of stuff going on. So
I can see that.
anyway, dude. Yeah, so it's sad, but I mean, I would like them to get together again. But here we are. And I had to put this in because I'm a huge Tell 'em Steve Dave fan.
Yeah, you are.
And I love this podcast. And if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, look at the link in the show notes. This is a fan, and they call them ants. Tell them ants, right? So this girl, Rachel, put together a kind of an infographic thing that shows before you listen to Tell 'em Steve Dave, if you've never listened to before, read this infographic.
Okay.
And it's super cool. Like just talking about the three main dudes and then just some other little tidbits where Tell 'em Steve Dave comes from. It's pretty legit, dude.
That's cool. I'll have to check that out.
It's definitely worth checking out.
Because that's the one that Q's on, right?
Yeah, Q's on it from Impractical Jokers.
That's the thing. I'm up to date on Impractical Jokers. It's so funny.
I know, it's
all
great.
the time.
And then, of course, Brian Johnson from from Comic Book Man and Walt Flanagan. Those three are the main three.
Right.
But Ming Chen rotates in there. Mike Zapsik. Get 'em Steve Dave is one of my favorites. There's a ton of other dudes in what they call Tell 'em Steve Dave, TSD town. So, excuse me, TESD town. And they do Christmas specials.
That's cool.
It's like kind of my.
It's your jam.
It's like pre-Sanspants and even past Sanspants, post-Sanspants. It's my favorite podcast kind of deal.
I gotcha.
And
I remember when we went to Comic-Con this year, you were all about going to their booth.
Well, because they just launched their Patreon
Right.
and they were there, and I do the $5 a month or whatever, and they have a bunch of extra podcasts they put out too. So it's there's a lot of really good podcasts out there and a lot of good content creators out there that aren't asking for a whole lot of money, but if you like what they do, they're more than happy to give you more of what they do.
Right.
And I think it's super important. So
Cool.
all right. So enough about that. I had to put the San Diego Comic-Con stuff in here because
we had our open registration.
Yep, and this is episode 150, and we usually end the show this way. So open registration happened. We did it. It was a weird one.
It was a weird one.
It was a weird one because we had so many people that we knew that were doing it, and we didn't really coordinate enough ahead of time.
Yeah, so I feel bad because, one, you got all 4 days, all 5 days.
I ended up with all for 5 days. Well, 5 days, including preview night. I ended up with all 5 days because one of our friends called me and was like, I got in. I have an open spot. And I was like, yeah, but what about blah, blah, so it was one of those moments.
I
where
basically, because he had texted me and I said, give it to Marshall.
Yeah. Well, because you weren't sure if you were going to be going.
Exactly.
So
basically, I was just trying to get a day so I had it as a placeholder in case I didn't get press.
Right.
That I would still be returning Reg next year.
Right.
I was able to get Sunday. Woo!
Yeah. Well, it's a day.
It's a day. But I feel bad because we didn't really coordinate with Skeen or Eddie, who I didn't know both were trying to come.
Yeah.
Because I had spots to buy 3 tickets. I bought one for me and one for my brother's wife.
Because you ended up getting in eventually.
Yeah. For one day. But
Right.
it would have been getting them a ticket. So I would have been able to get one of them in. It was just poor communication on my part.
And we had a lot of other friends trying to go for it as well. And some people got it, some people didn't. But one way or another, Pucked 4 is happening.
Yes, it is.
And we're going to be we're coordinating that. We're trying to get a place for everybody to
I love the idea of doing an Airbnb.
Yeah, we're just gonna get a big ass house somewhere, I think, and get together. So we're still working on that. So if you're planning on coming and you're a guildie or a listener or whatever, and you're coming down, let's hang out, let's do it. So it's gonna be fun. What else? And speaking of, the first offsite is Disney.
Which is interesting because they've skipped Comic-Con altogether for a few years now.
Do you know what it is, right?
No.
It's D23 Gold Plus members.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So if you want, and so the tweet is, did you want some SDCC news today? How about the first offsite for news for 2019? D23 once again holding their member mixer. So it's their D23 member mixer is what it is.
All right.
So it makes sense. But that's it.
Cool.
That's what we got. Anything else you want to say before we do our closing ceremonies, dude?
Nope.
I feel like we're going away forever, but we won't. But
no, just we'll be back for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we will be for sure. Sure.
And I'll be away during the holidays, but
yeah, well, everybody will be.
Yeah, good point.
It is what it is. So, thanks for tuning in The Usual Podcast. If you have comments or questions, you can find us at theusualpodcast.com. Email us at theusualpodcast@gmail.com. And we are on Facebook, Google+, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. I am at Pops on Twitter, and Will is at I am Will Griggs. We're in iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and Plex. So like us, share us, and tell your friends. Teespring.com/usualpodcast is a way to buy gear and support the show. Audibletrial.com/usualpodcast is another good way to support the show. And I'm going to put a plug out there. I got the newest Brandon Sanderson book on Audible. It's called Skyward. It was phenomenal.
And also, don't forget the new George R.R. Martin book came out, talking about the origins of House Targaryen.
Indeed. And the best way, of course, to support the show is patreon.com/usualpodcast. Give us $1 or more an episode, and you are eligible to see our trailer times, blooper reels, early content, and anything else we throw out there. So
Cool.
all right, man. So we got to get out of here, but
I just say I've got a fever,
well,
and the only remedy is having more fun.
have a fun, and we'll see you all next week
Peace.
on 151. 151.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thanks for joining us, everybody in the chat room. You're awesome and amazing. And, yeah. Anything else? Nobody's saying anything, so we're going to slow walk out. Slow walk. All right. No, seriously. Thank you, everybody. Yes. We'll see you all next time.